Everyone remembers the first time they had their sexual awakening, right? For me, it was when I was around 11 years old. My mom and dad had separated, so my dad packed up and moved out to Miami to pursue his career of owning his own produce company. Him and his friend shared a condo at the time, and let me tell you, that thing was sick. View of the beach, 5 minutes from downtown, a park right next door. If I was living as a bachelor in Miami right now, that's how I would have done it. But right next to the couch was a stack of magazines, and the first magazine that was on that pile was a Hustler. I can still see it really vividly. And there was a woman that was on the front of this magazine, and it wasn't so overly revealing, but she was topless, and her breasts were dipped in this like pink paint. And it made every neuron in my brain light up like the 4th of July. I was that monkey from the meme. This fried my 11-year-old brain, and I think that it was that slippery slope for the plethora of events that have taken place in my life, but I'll talk about those later on in this video. So if you're new here, welcome to the channel. I'm super grateful for you watching and coming by. Please like and subscribe to stay up to date with my content, and watch until the end of the video so you can have a framework that you can implement for when you're feeling out of control. Now, this single event, coupled with the fact that I was a freshly budding teenager, bro, I couldn't get that shit out of my head. My hormones started to go all over the place. I was crazy, corny all the time. And to be honest, not much has changed since then, but that's besides the point. I remember when my parents ended up getting back together, and then we moved to New Jersey in a house, South Jersey. I found a Korn DVD that was in my parents' room. I don't know why, I don't know what they were doing, but... So like any 12-year-old or 13-year-old kid, I put that shit into my PS2, and I let it play. So my parents at the time also watched Rome. And if you don't know what Rome is, it's not the ancient city. I mean, it is, but it's the show on HBO about it. And much like Game of Thrones now, this show was filled with war, with politics, and yeah, you guessed it, it was filled with sex. So every episode had at least 2 to 3 scenes per episode. And when I would do my homework in the kitchen, I'd be peeking over the TV and watching this clearly adult show. Now, let's not roast my parents for this or for me watching this, because hypothetically, could they have told me to do my homework upstairs? Yeah, probably. Did they do that? No, they wanted to watch their murder porn, regardless of how it would affect their 12-year-old son's brain. This time of the early 2000s was just wild, because there was late-night HBO, which was just raw, unfiltered TV shows that had everything under the sun. And then guess what came on after that? HBO's Cornucopia. I'm removing the P there because you know what it is, but it was hosted by Corn star Katie Morgan. So what did my sneaky ass do? I waited up until the show came on, and my parents were well into bed, and I watched it. And it wasn't just strictly Corn, it was a show about it. However, Katie Morgan was dressed in scantily clad garb, and it was pretty incredible since I hadn't specifically seen anything like that before. So you can only imagine what type of stimulus this does to a young man's brain, a developing brain. I remember that my dad had given me access to his computer at the time as well, and I would play a game called Desktop Destroyer. And if you played this game back in the day, throw a like into the video, because you could, use your flamethrower on a desktop or a laser gun, and it was a game for younger kids, so they didn't mess up the actual computer. But yeah, shout out if you remember Beat Up Buddy as well. I don't think that's the literal name of it, but you could put a nuke on this poor, like, circular blob man and just beat the crap out of him. But regardless. So, of course, my 12-year-old brain is going to look up porn with an unsupervised computer. So I did. I went to every site that I could find when I Googled the word, and guess what? That shit gave my dad's computer the worst adware viruses ever. It took over your screen, it locked your computer, it played loud-ass audio that couldn't be closed out, and when this happened, I was freaking out. I shut the lid to the laptop, and the audio was still playing, so I ended up taking the battery out the back of it, and when it was finally off, later that week, I think it was, is when my dad and I finally had the talk. Now, this wasn't like a normal, oh, the birds and the bees, son. It was more just like, honestly, it kind of felt like a Q&A panel in a way, where like I asked him questions and he answered them. But overall, it was the talk. So fast forward many years, and I'm officially in high school, and I get my first girlfriend, and we're both 16 years old. And funny enough, we even actually had the same exact birthday. But we've been dating for around 6 months or so we decided that it was time to do it. You know, we've been building up since that point, but we lived pretty far from each other. I would say around 15 minutes by car. And I wasn't going to ask my dad if I could go over to my girlfriend's house at the time to lose my virginity. So I did what any sane kid would do, and I snuck out. I rode my bike to her house, and that shit took forever. No joke, it was like a 2-hour bike ride, and it was hilly. But once I had gotten there, it was already around 1:30 in the morning, and we did it on the trampoline in her parents' backyard, no less. It was actually the most nervous I've been in my entire life up to that point. So, shameful to say, but I was too quick with it. And then after like 3 minutes, we were done. And then guess what I had to do? I had to ride my bike back home again. So I still remember riding home at 2 a.m. and there's these birds called nightjars. And these nightjars have like little striped wings. I'll put a picture up on the screen here, but they were circling every streetlight all the way back home. And it just rained, and there was the smell of dirt and plants that were in the air that were so distinct. I can still smell them now. If you're familiar with the valley in Arizona, it's like creosote, so you know what that smell is like. But no shade to my girlfriend at that time, but that ride home, to me, is more memorable than the experience that we had shared together. But that shows a critical issue with myself as well as our society now and how we view sexual experiences. So I asked, should I feel more strongly towards that? I mean, it was my first time, and I don't look back on it as fondly as I did the journey it took me to get there and go home. So I'm not going to humble brag, but since that day, and I'm 31 years old now, I've had sex with well over probably 100 people. And that slippery slope has brought me to where I am now. Between some of the long-term girlfriends that I've had over the years, as well as one-night stands and the flings, as well as like lost lovers and, no shame, but even working girls. So it's framed my mind into a way that sees sex objectively instead of subjectively. I see it as something that should be done because it's an animalistic instinct instead of an experience that can be shared with your significant other. This has been a main issue in my current relationship of 5 years. The way that I thought about it was, why isn't my girlfriend horny all the time like I am? And I've been trying to be more introspective and talk to other people about this issue as well. And my goal is to reframe my mind so that sex isn't ruling my thoughts at every part and point of my life. This decision tree of my experiences, or what you can call like the butterfly effect, if you will, has caused me a lot of pain in my life because I've been making decisions based on my perceived wants and needs instead of thinking how it could affect others. Essentially, I was thinking with my head instead of my brain, if you catch my drift. And I remember back in 2018, before even the pandemic started, that I dated a girl for around 8 or 9 months. We had a good foundation, but it was very sexually charged. For the sake of anonymity, we'll call her Daisy. Now, Daisy was a very cute, down-to-earth girl. She was hardworking, and I can tell that she fell for me right away. I also wasn't as into her as she was into me, which weighed on my mind, but I had pushed that feeling down because I liked her, and I was horny, and I wanted sex. I was also gooning a lot in tandem with the crazy amount of sex that we were already having, and it caused issues in the bedroom because I didn't see our, quote, normal sex as fun. I wasn't able to finish because I wasn't stimulated enough. So I thought, to help in this situation, we could watch porn together while we were doing it. Even then, I couldn't get off. I can only imagine really how that made her feel when that happened. She was defeated. I could just see it in her eyes. Now, this young lady lived with her mother at the time, and her mother was very attractive, she was fit, and she was single. For some context, I could tell that her mother was attracted to me, and I was attracted to her. The way we looked at each other, the moment we met, we kind of just wanted to rip each other's clothes off. But then again, I thought, I'm dating her daughter. So I'm not going to act on any of these thoughts or impulses that I had had. And every time I went over there to hang out with Daisy, it was flirting and temptation and, wondering what could happen. It was right around my birthday, and we were still underage at 20, so we had wanted to drink. And I had asked her if she could get us some booze, and she happily obliged. So we got a handle of Fireball, and we got pretty tanked over the course of that night. We were dancing, we were doing karaoke in the living room. We were just having great conversation between the three of us. We were playing games, and then the night started to die down. So Daisy ended up passing out on the couch. So I had picked her up, and I had brought her to her bed. And then Daisy's mom and myself, we stayed up for a little bit longer, talking, hanging out, and then eventually we went to bed. So she walked into her room, and then I went into the bathroom and I started to brush my teeth. And I don't know what it was, but I just thought to myself to go into her room and just make a move. And I stood at the door for a second, and I kind of steeled my resolve, if you want to call it that, and then I walked in. She was laying in bed, and I went over, and I kind of like rubbed her shoulder in a way, and she turned to me and grabbed me by the wrists and then lightly held my hand. I don't even remember what I said, but we didn't break physical contact, and eventually I started to caress her neck with my hand, and then she sat up in bed and she asked me, "What about my daughter?" And then from there, I knew what was going to happen. I didn't respond to her, and then we just started kissing and taking our clothes off. And we couldn't wait to have a piece of one another, and honestly, it felt exhilarating, even looking back on this memory now. But as we were doing it, and we got more into it, she asked me one more time, "What about Daisy?" And I just said, "I don't know." And then we just kept doing it. And I felt bad, and she felt bad, and we didn't stop. We were using each other for our own personal gain and selfish reasons. Once we finished, we made out for a little longer, and then we went to bed, and I crept into Daisy's bed, and I went to sleep. Now, after that night, it really wasn't the same. Daisy and I had gone out on a few more dates, but then we had broken up. I was closed off, and the anxiety of her finding out really made me put up a wall between the two of us because I felt so much remorse over what I had done. I remember that she was devastated after the breakup. I think in a way that she knew, or at least that's what I'm saying to cope, instead of ending the relationship early because we didn't work well together. I stayed because I was just there for the sex, and in the end, I leaned on that sunken cost fallacy. I put time into the relationship, so why should we break up? I really do, looking back on it now, I hope she's doing well, but I hold a lot of regret for my actions, regardless of the act of itself was euphoric. I can only imagine the trauma that I instilled on that poor family. I put my personal desires in front of what was good for the both of us. Now, I don't tell you this story to brag, but to show others the dangers of letting desires and impulses lead your life. I was unhappy for a long time, and I'm still working on finding things that allow me to feel at peace and be content. My goal is to lead a deeply fulfilling life. And to do that, I need to foster communities and relationships that are mutually engaging and loving. It's one of the main reasons that I started this YouTube channel. Now, I don't think that control over your own mind is the correct term for what I'm talking about here. A lot of people feel out of control when they make these decisions, but they're just that. They're decisions that you made because you were thinking linearly. You're in control of your own mind, your own body, and the actions and the effects on those actions. Now, why did I have sex with my ex-girlfriend's mother? Because I didn't think of the bigger picture. Yeah, it was great. At the end of the day, it's you who rules your own world and makes decisions based, I'm telling you right now, on your perceived wants and needs. There's an exercise that I have implemented into my daily routine anytime I'm feeling flooded. And as a preface for this definition of what that is, flooding is an overwhelming state of emotion where you just freeze. It's akin to analysis paralysis. You don't make any decisions because there's so much going on in your brain that it feels almost impossible to process. Now, the exercise that I implemented is called a 3-point check. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? And what are you doing? And this has helped me ground myself tremendously in times when I'm feeling flooded with this emotion. There are times when I've been zonked, or like, gooned out of my mind where I need to make a rash, quick decision just to get out of that mindset. But then I do my 3-point check. What am I thinking? Oh, I'm feeling anxious because of tomorrow. What am I feeling? I'm feeling my breathing is heavy. My hands and my jaw is clenched. And then what am I doing? Oh, I'm just laying in bed. I'm fine. I'm safe. Implement these things so that you can build a framework for yourself that works for you in time where you need to ground yourself, where you need to calm down. And I bring this up because no one wants to feel overwhelmed or like they're being puppeted by a system that's letting you or setting you up to be a drone. All these things, whether it's porn or it's sex or whatever your vice is, are just external things. You have the ability to make a choice in how you interact with them, and whether that's from a place of abundance or from a place of scarcity will ultimately shape your mind. If you want to hear more of these stories, or you like the frameworks that I'm building for myself, please like and subscribe to stay up to date with the uploads, which seem to be happening every Saturday. So depending on what I get done with my weekly thought dumps, then that upload will go up. And then once again, thank you so much for watching. Go conquer the world, and we'll talk in the next one. Peace. We won this game, by the way. That's about it. Yeah, it was good. We rushed their Nexus. We got fucking... we got Elder buff, and then we kind of just stomped them from there. But overall, it was a good game. Like and subscribe.
Extremes are easy. It's the balance that is difficult. Going somewhere? Progress is served by technology, not controlled by it.